The Reamer's voice was laced with condescension as he spoke to Doug in the dingy, cluttered house, the air thick with the stench of rot and decay. "You're nothing but a tool to me, Doug. A means to an end." Doug's face reddened with anger as he glared at the Reamer, his eyes blazing with intensity. "You're exploiting me, Reamer. You're taking advantage of my vulnerability." The Reamer leaned back in his chair, his rubber catsuit creaking softly as he steepled his fingers together, a sly grin spreading across his face. The Reamer sneered, his eyes gleaming with amusement as he leaned forward, his voice taking on a menacing tone. "Vulnerability? Ha! You're just a weak little worm, Doug." Doug's anger boiled over, his words spilling out in a torrent as he took a step closer to the Reamer, his fists clenched at his sides. "You're sick, Reamer. You're using my money to buy rubber catsuits and send commissary money to male inmates." The Reamer's laughter echoed through the house, mingling with the shadows that danced on the walls as he rocked back and forth in his chair, clearly enjoying Doug's distress. "You're so predictable, Doug," the Reamer said, his voice dripping with condescension as he leaned forward, his eyes glinting with amusement. "You think you're so much better than me, don't you?" Doug's eyes narrowed, his jaw clenched in anger as he glared at the Reamer, the tension between them growing thicker than the dust that coated the furniture. The situation escalated rapidly as the Reamer lunged at Doug, the rubber catsuit creaking ominously as he moved. Doug's eyes widened in alarm, and he raised his hands in a defensive gesture, his back against the wall as the Reamer loomed over him. "Back off, Reamer," Doug warned, his voice firm despite the fear that gripped his heart. The Reamer's laughter grew louder, more maniacal as he towered over Doug, his eyes blazing with excitement. The door creaked, and Doug's heart sank as the door swung open, revealing a figure shrouded in shadows. The figure stepped forward, its features illuminated by the faint light emanating from the room, and Doug's eyes widened in surprise as he recognized the newcomer. It was an old acquaintance, someone he hadn't seen in years. The acquaintance's eyes scanned the room, taking in the scene before them, their gaze lingering on the Reamer, clad in the rubber catsuit, before shifting to Doug. "What's going on here?" the acquaintance asked, their voice firm but laced with curiosity as they stepped forward, their eyes narrowing as they took in the tension between Doug and the Reamer. The Reamer's grin faltered for a moment before he regained his composure, his voice dripping with insincerity as he leaned back in his chair. "Just a little game we were playing, friend." Doug shot him a skeptical look, his eyes flashing with anger. "This isn't a game, Reamer. This is serious." The acquaintance's eyes locked onto the Reamer, their gaze piercing as they took a step closer. "I think Doug's right," they said finally. "This doesn't look like a game to me." The Reamer's face darkened, his eyes flashing with anger as he glared at the acquaintance. "You're not part of this," he spat. "Stay out of it." The acquaintance stood firm, their eyes never leaving the Reamer's face. "I'm already involved," they said, "and I'm not leaving until this is resolved." The Reamer's grin returned, wider than before, as he leaned forward, his voice taking on a menacing tone. "Oh, this will be resolved, all right." Doug's eyes met the acquaintance's, and he saw a glimmer of determination there. Maybe, just maybe, he wouldn't have to face the Reamer alone after all. The air was electric with tension as the standoff continued, the outcome hanging precariously in the balance. Suddenly, the Reamer's eyes flicked towards the door, and a sly smile spread across his face. "It seems we have an audience," he said, his voice dripping with malice. Doug's heart sank as he heard the sound of footsteps echoing down the hallway, growing louder with each passing moment. The Reamer's grin grew wider, his eyes glinting with excitement. "The game is about to get a lot more interesting," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The lights in the room began to flicker, casting eerie shadows on the walls as the footsteps drew closer. Doug's breath caught in his throat as the door creaked open, and a figure loomed in the doorway, its features shrouded in darkness. The Reamer's laughter grew louder, more